Good morning and welcome. Thank you all for coming. Those of you that are joining us by video, I hope that you find this coffee talk informative. Very different than what we normally do when we have a historical topic that we've researched and we share what we've learned, because we find some really cool things and we like to share that with the public. Today, however, is more of a how-to video or talk about accessing our digital newspaper collection. That has become a project that has become very important to the Historical Society. We have a complete collection of Pipestone County Stars from the first one published to present in the archive, but newspaper gets old and brittle, so we don't necessarily want to allow access to those papers unless we have to. A lot of our newspapers were put on microfilm, which is great. We still use microfilm for any that we haven't digitized. The difference between the microfilm collection and the digitized collection is, A, you have to come here and use the microfilm reader. You have to learn how to use it, which we help with, but it's relying on your eyes to search and find things. And while you can find great things, you can find so much more with the digitized newspaper because it comes with OCR, optical character recognition. You put in a search term, the computer searches what you typed in. Is it 100% perfect? Doubtful. Is it going to find more than my naked eye can find when the earliest newspapers were just paragraph after paragraph or blurb after blurb of information without titles and headlines? Absolutely. So it's become very important to us because it has opened our eyes to how much more we can discover and learn, how much better our research can be. And so for the general public, if you're looking at your family history or the history of the area or a business, it does play an important part in helping you to fully understand what's available. Our first phase was from middle of 1879, which is when the first newspaper was published, through 1915, and it encompasses all the newspapers in our collection from throughout the county. So not just the Pipestone County Star, there was also the Pipestone Leader. All the small towns, Jasper, Edgerton, Holland, Woodstock, Rooten, that had newspapers that are in Pipestone County, if they're in our collection, they are being digitized as well. And so instead of focusing on one community, we focused on years so that we can encompass the entire county. And that's actually proven to be beneficial because sometimes what you read in the Pipestone County Star might be just a small blurb if it's about a citizen or a business that was in Rooten or Edgerton. They've done a much more in-depth report in their local newspaper. So if you read all the different articles, you start to get a bigger, broader picture of what was happening. We just, I think it was March that we sent them out. We just, in the last couple of months, got phase 2 completed. Phase 2 covers 1916 through 1939, so all newspapers up to the December 31st of 1939 that are in the archive here are now digitized across the county. So that's about 60 years, which is really great. Is there more to do? Yes. Would staff love more? Well, I shouldn't speak for everybody, but as the museum educator that does a lot of research and presentations, I can't wait for more. I'm like forever pushing. Can we just get the next? When you have to go back to microfilm, it's a little frustrating when you've gotten used to the digital newspaper. The great thing about our digital newspaper archive is that it is free to the public. Is it free to do? Absolutely not. There are organizations or businesses like newspapers.com that would come in and scan and digitize our newspapers free to us. But then they put them on their website and you have to purchase a membership to newspapers.com to access them. We did not want that to happen. So we have been working with Advantage Archive. They're based in Iowa. They hold the contract with the state of Iowa to digitize all their historical records, and they've expanded into surrounding states and historical societies. So they have a very long background, but we pay them up front. So each phase has cost about $25,000 and takes concerted fundraising. So we're about $50,000 in, keeping it accessible to the public. And we've had some great community partners that have helped us. So the first step is, okay, great. I can get to them. They're free. You got all these years. How do I find them? Well, you go, and I'm going to do this on my laptop, and you're going to see it on the screen. So I'm going to my web browser, which I personally like to use Google Chrome. Doesn't have to be Google, but when you go to an internet browser, and it's going to pre-populate because I go there, but you're going to type in pipestonecountymuseum.com. That is the museum's website. Once you do that, you should see a screen that looks like this. This is the home page of the Pipestone County Museum. And then if you just scroll down, and it's only a couple of things down, you see where it says the digital newspaper archive is now live, and the blue circle that says click here. So once you click that, it's going to take you to the home page of our piece of Advantage Archive. Questions about how to find it? It's pretty simple. I have it bookmarked. I'm getting a little concerned because it has not popped up with the picture of the... It should pop up with a picture of like our building. I'm going to refresh and see what happens. Sometimes it can be a little slow. Sometimes it can be our internet connection, which I did hardwire in so I wouldn't have to rely on Wi-Fi through the stone building. But certainly that can be an issue at times. We're not sure how many. Each organization that they've digitized has a link to a place on their server. Ours is pipestone.historyarchives.online that you can see up in that search bar at the top. So it could be the volume that they're getting going. We're not sure. I'm not getting any errors, so hopefully that's not the problem today. When we're on this homepage, I'm just going to scroll down and show you. I'll be back to the top in a little bit. Yep, it's not loading properly, Noah. Would you unplug from hardwire and try Wi-Fi, or maybe we'll just start again? This was my biggest fear, so that's always going to be. I've closed out of my browser. I'm going to reload, and I actually have it in my bookmark bar, so in the interest of not having to type it all back in, I'm going to try reloading. It's going to be very difficult to show if it doesn't load. As you scroll down the page, you can see the red circle that says by title, and then you would see the title: Pipestone County Star, Pipestone Leader, Ruthven Tribune, Holland Independent, the names of the newspapers. So you could search individually in that newspaper if you wanted to. If you're only looking for information about a business in a particular community, you could narrow your search that way. You can also see there's one by time. This really needs to load for me. By time is going to let you narrow it by decades. 1879 to 1880, 1880 to 1889, 1890 to 1899. It gives you in 10-year decades. But I was going all the way down to the bottom, and they're not loading either, thankfully. Thankfully, in the bottom at the red, what I wanted to say is that I mentioned that this has cost us an amount of money. We have certainly had great sponsors. They're listed at the bottom on the homepage. We couldn't do it without them. We have received donations from the Pipestone Area Friends of the Library because they get lots of requests for old newspapers, so they can access it. We have the Pipestone Area Community Foundation and the Southwest Initiative Foundation. Pipestone Community Education, so teachers and students can access it at the school, have helped. Advantage Archive themselves, the host site, has given us discounts to help us make this happen. The board of directors here, we have an endowment fund in Sioux Falls, and each year we get a payout of interest on that endowment. They have designated portions of that specifically to the newspaper digitization. And then there's been private donors, and their names are listed on our homepage. So I want to make it very clear as we talk about this that we've had some really great sponsors that help us do this. And I've told you, you go to Pipestone County Museum. I'm not sure how much I'm going to be able to show if we don't. I want to see if our Wi-Fi will take over instead of our internet. Something changed. Explore the archives, but that home page is not there. At the top, it's there without the picture. This happened one other time. Let's see. At the top, there should be a photo of the museum building, but you will see the box at the top, and it says search for. And even if it doesn't load, there's some things I can tell you. So the search box for all these words. So that's one of the first things that we want to do. So one of the things I've been working on is researching some of the early communities in the county that no longer exist. Like the community of Airlie, I've done some looking into how big was it, what businesses were there. There were others. One in particular was called Gray Siding, and it really was not much more than a railroad siding, but that was when trains had to stop about every 6 miles to refuel with water because they were steam powered. So just east of Pipestone, there was a Gray Siding was the name of it. It got a post office box or address, so mail by train was being left there for the farmers that lived around Gray Siding, and they had a market for their grain and livestock to larger markets. So I've been doing some of the searching. So in your search bar, you would type whatever term it is, family name, business, community, like I just did there. I will point out this drop-down menu to the side because I can have it search all these words. And you can see, and this is saying 59. This is not loaded properly. It should. I'm guessing there's records on the sites to 1859. Ours are 1879. And when it loads properly, it limits it to 1879 to 1915. You can leave your dates set how you want them. Generally, when I start a new topic, I type in my topic, I leave the dates really large, and then you would click Explore the Archives, which should be red. Any advice for me, Noah? It was working when I tried it this morning when I plugged in, of course. I did try this. It's not going to load anything. All right. Oh, by golly, it did. I didn't think it was going to. What I want to show you is if I put Gray Siding and I leave the dates how they have them set, in blue you can see it showing 1 through 10 of 576 results. 576 results is a whole lot to sort through. It's kind of overwhelming, even for those of us that spend time on computers doing a lot of research most days, right? So you see the first one, and what you would do is you'd scroll down and you can see the second one, the third one. These are not everything you want to see. It's showing me little blurbs and highlighting that it's found some of the words. And it will do that for 10 of them. Sorry. When you get through the 10th one, down at the bottom, can you see that then you would click number 2 and it would load the next 10 results, so 11 through 20 and so on. That's more than I want to weed through. Also, and I'm going to scroll back up to that first one, notice it says the Farmer's Leader from Thursday, August 30th of 1900. And if you notice what it's showing you in blue, it's showing siding, not just gray siding. And then over here it says gold is gray. You see just little blurbs. Those are to give you a sample of, is this something I want to look at? If you are trying to weed through a bunch of results, this kind of tells you. I know I want it to be the community of gray siding, so there's something I can do already to eliminate it. If you go back to where our gray siding search term is, up here in this box, there's a drop-down menu beside it. I can have it search all the words, but if I click that, the drop-down menu comes and I want it to actually search this exact phrase. I want it to search for gray siding together as one phrase within. So if you're searching for a very common family name, but you only want one specific ancestor, you would probably want to include first and last name, because if you put in just the last name, you're going to get every possible hit. So this is where the narrowing comes in, and it's just using these tools. And can you see it change from showing 1 through 10 of 576? It's now narrowed it down for me to 160 results, which is helpful. There are ways to make it even better, and we're going to get there. But what I want to show you, the really cool thing is that, okay, I can see in this first one that it says gray siding. I can tell it's kind of talking about my community. I want to see it. What you really want to do after that is go to the title of the newspaper, the Farmer's Leader, and click on that, because this is where you really get to see what you want to see. Ah, the entire newspaper now pops up. There's a scroll bar on the side. So you can scroll down and you can start reading. Even if you're not doing research, even if you just want to see old newspaper ads or what was happening on a certain date and time, it's kind of cool to look at these old newspapers and see what was going on in the community. And as I keep scrolling to the bottom, what I want you to notice is I get down here and highlight it in red and orange, and it does that. It finds the word, and if it's more than once on the page, it'll probably be red the first time and orange the second time. But it has already found where gray siding is mentioned on the entire page, so I don't have to read the entire page of print. It's highlighted it for me. And then I can start reading the article and see what it's talking about. And it's saying something about J.C. Stevens along the Rock Island track. From there to gray siding, everything is swept clean. And from a mile beyond gray siding, clear over into Murray County is a scene of desolation. So there's clearly been a storm. I'm not going to read the whole article to you, but you could scroll up to the top and find out, was it a tornado? Was there a thunderstorm? Was it a hailstorm? And the title tells me devastated by hail. So it's telling me a hailstorm went through the county. You can see the date up there. It was Thursday, July 23rd, 1903. So sometime right around that date, between issues of the paper, we know a hailstorm. And it's talking about what happened in the county. If you find something that you really like, it's relevant to your family or to what you're doing and you want to save it, I can't print right from this page, but up in the top, in the black, can you see this little, it says clip? Click on click, and then you can take, using your cursor, you can just simply draw. That was me, not it. That's what happens when Trava does things. Let's try that again. I've got a little scissors icon, and I clip and I drag and I draw. If it's longer, it looks like I've lost part of it, but what you'll see is once I let go, anything I've drawn a box around is there, and you can see it. It pops up on the captured clip. So there's the start of it, and if I scroll down, I can see it actually did follow it all the way down and get the entire thing. So then there's two options. I can download it with the caption, which is highlighted in blue, or I can download just the clip. I always download with the caption. The caption is this piece at the bottom, found on page 1 of the Farmer's Leader, published in Pipestone, Minnesota on Thursday, July 23rd, 1903. If we're doing research and we want to know when we found it, very, very helpful to include that. So I would download with caption only, and then it's going to let me pick where I want to save it, which it just so happens that I have a file in my computer. I'm in my documents, which you'll each figure out how you save things, but I actually have one that's called gray siding. So I can just click on that, open the file, and I can tell it to save. And you can see that there's another one in there. And if I tell it to save, it's in there. So what if I want to find it again? What if I don't like working on the computer? I'm a paper person, which I kind of am. I'm of the age where paper is my friend. I can simply go back into my documents, find my gray siding folder. I want this article. So I can do that, and then from there I could tell it to print. I don't know if it will connect with our printer. It's networked, but it's in the, through the stone wall it did. And then I can just play with it and tell it that I want it to be a portrait, and I can play down at the bottom, and this is knowing your printer, but I can tell it to shrink to fit so the entire article would appear on the page, and then I could just click print and I would have a paper copy. It does not let me go straight to print, but it does let me save and then print. So if you're looking to keep things for family history, great. If you're looking to share it by email, then you can just attach it to an email from where you saved it on your computers and, send it to that family member living in California or wherever they happen to live. So, and when you're done with that, then you simply could click close and you're back to the newspaper screen. Questions so far?
So you only did one column.
I did the one column. It probably continues, and you could drag over farther and get the whole thing. I was just doing a quick demonstration. So it told me that there was 160 possibilities, right? I've seen one. Now there's two things I can do to get to possibility number 2. I can go back up in the corner and click back to discover, and it's going to take me back to this page where it showed me I was seeing 1 through 10, which is kind of cool because as you scroll down, it'll go, oh, you've recently viewed this one. It put a box around it. So if you're doing a lot, how do I know if I looked at this one or not? It tells you you've already looked at that one. So you could scroll down and look at the next one simply by clicking at the title of the newspaper, and I'm going to let that one load. We're not necessarily going to read it to know what happened, but we can scroll down, and I knew it was going to do this sooner or later, and it does. It's supposed to find it. It's supposed to highlight it in red or orange. It does not always. In that case, you are going to need to read the entire page looking for gray siding. Like I said, it's not perfect. It's still better than me reading every page of a newspaper to know that it's somewhere on this page. I also point out things like the top of this is kind of dark. It's kind of hard to read, right? Down at the bottom, there's a toolbar. So if you look down here at the bottom, there's this little kind of like sun icon. That lets me slide, lets me slide so I can make it lighter or darker, and I can play with the brightness and the contrast to get it to be something that my eyes like to read. So use those toolbars. This little microphone down at the bottom is, I told you it would start reading to you. If you don't want to hear it reading page 1 when you're on page 3, you can silence it. You can silence it through your main computer volume control, or you can silence the page through that. Also, I don't know, I've got bifocals and the start of cataracts, so I don't know, a couple of times I've caught myself doing this with the glare of the fluorescent light on my screen. So maybe it's smaller than I like. Do you see the plus and minus signs over here? I just click the plus sign and it starts making it bigger. So I can continue to scroll down, and if I need to see what was on the other side, it gives me a second scroll bar, so I can scroll right to left as well. So you can play with it. You can make it large enough to see. You can play with colors to get it very readable and usable. So like I said when we started, the best way to really get to know how to use it is to go give it a search term and start playing with the features it has. But I told you one way to access the next page was to go back to discover in that upper corner. There's another way with the 10, and that's right over here. This 5/8 is showing me that this is on page 5 out of 8 that were in this edition of this newspaper, but it also says search result. This is 12 of 20. Remember I had clicked to the second page of results? Well, I'm on 12. The next one would be 13. If I click the arrow, it's going to automatically pop up the next one, and I don't have to go back and scroll down and click on it. So this is the faster way to access the next result, and it will go through the 10. After you get to 10 or 20 or 30, and there you see gray siding is highlighted again for us, so we could, if we wanted to clip it, we could draw around it and save it. After you get through 20, then you would have to go back to the Discover, and you would have to scroll down to the bottom and find that next page, like page 3 or so on. But faster ways to find things. So, questions? I know, it's a lot of information. That's why I say playing with it is one of the things I really like, and I'm going to go up here, and I want to change my search term. I'm like, I want to start over. I'm just going to click the home box again. My search term, and I'm doing this very specifically on this term, is going to be Bennett. For those of you that don't know, Charles Bennett was kind of one of the early founding fathers of this town. He had a drugstore. He was platting out the town with Daniel Sweet. I'm pretty confident when I put this name in and I leave it with a broad open date and I tell it to explore, we're going to get an awful lot of results. And I'm going to show you how you can narrow those down. 1 through 10 of 11,000 results. Am I going to sit here and click on this and go through all 11,000 results? Probably not. But I don't want to know about Charles Bennett today. I really want to know about his wife, Adelaide. Charles Bennett, just for you that want to know, a letter came to Pipestone asking for a sample of the Pipestone rock. The postmaster gave it to Charles Bennett. He collected a sample from what is now the National Monument and sent it to Adelaide George. They started a letter writing campaign that led to their marriage, and they were married, and they did settle in Pipestone then. So I want to know more about her. She was an accomplished poet. She was published in multiple magazines. She was also quite the botanist and preserved a collection of the native plants that were here early. She donated it to the school. Unfortunately, it was hanging in the science wing of the school that burned in 1917, and that was lost. But I know she did some great things in this town, so I want to know about her. So I'm going to start by going, okay, I don't want to leave it this broad with Bennett. I want to add Adelaide. So there's this plus sign by Bennett. If I click plus, it's going to search for Bennett and whatever I type in. So now I can type in Adelaide, and I'm going to go up to both of them and put search the exact phrase. I'm going to leave my dates open. But with Adelaide Bennett, if I click explore and give it a minute, my 11,000 suddenly became just 1 through 6 of 6 results. And in this case, because I entered them separately, Bennett and Adelaide, you can see in my blue, it's talking about Adelaide Wharton and Bennett. It's not necessarily giving me what I want. These are 6 articles that have the name Adelaide in it and the name Bennett in it, but it doesn't have Adelaide Bennett together. And I did that on purpose, knowing it would do that, because what I really probably need to do is go back home, type in Adelaide Bennett, and then click this exact phrase as a one search. And then when I click explore, let's see how many times. Oh, narrowed even more. Now I'm finding out there's only 2 articles that include the name Adelaide Bennett in it. One thing I will say, and again, this was by choice, for a woman at the turn of the century and before to be called by their first name is not going to yield a lot of results. You were not Adelaide. You were Mrs. Charles or Mrs. CH. So I have not really done all my due diligence. I can also go in here and erase the Adelaide, delete it, and put Mrs. Bennett. And then if I click explore the archives and give it time, oh, now it went up to 227. We know a lot about her, but not because we search by Adelaide Bennett, but because we've known to look for Mrs. Bennett or Mrs. Charles or Mrs. CH. And again, by design, I wanted to point that out to anybody sitting in the room today or listening. If you're looking for a family member, especially a female family member, she was probably Mrs. her husband's name or Mrs. her husband's initials until she was widowed. After she was widowed, then she might have been Mrs. Adelaide Bennett or whatever. And that's just how society did things. But as you're using the digital newspaper, it's those kinds of tricks that become very helpful to make sure that your search is as complete as it possibly can be. Or you might only look at the 2 that said Adelaide Bennett and thought, well, there's nothing there about her. Don't stop without taking a moment to think about, okay, what other terms could I search by? Because it really does help to think about society in that era and what people were called. A lot of men went by their initials, a lot of women went by their husband's names, and that's important to know. So whether you're doing business, community, or family, or even church type of record search, it's important to know that. With that, I've kind of explained everything I can about the digital newspaper. I'll just remind you, you click on the name of the article, you can see there she is. A party at Pistano's. Mr. Poole was having a party for Ernestine and Will, and according to prearrangement, Ernestine slipped downstairs ahead of time to show herself to Mrs. Bennett. She could not help but be proud of the evening. Then we see a little image or ad, and we just keep going and find it. It does not always tell you that it's continued later, but if you keep going, oh, she's having a conversation with Mrs. Bennett. As I look at this, I find that this is probably not our Mrs. Bennett from Pipestone. This is probably a story that was published nationally, that was carried in multiple papers, and the Bennett name became a part of it. So You can figure that out by reading more of the article. Questions or comments? It's a lot.
So if you would, instead of just Mrs. Bennett, if you would put the husband's initials, Mrs.
CH?
CH or whatever, does that?
Well, whoops, I think I went too far. Let's go back. I accidentally hit the button twice. Let's do Mrs. CH Bennett. And we're going to leave the window wide. Oh, that's what I need to show you. See, when we put Mrs. CH, but I forgot to click and I do this often, I forgot to click this exact phrase. So now she's not showing up as Mrs. CH Bennett in any of the results, but I could edit it and try it under Mrs. Charles Bennett, and that's what I said. Think about it, especially with the ladies, if you're not finding them under their first name. So she's Mrs. Charles Bennett once. There were over 1,000 with Mrs. Bennett, so probably they left his name out, and that might lead to a story or another Mrs. Bennett, but at least you can find the results to narrow it down. Without searching, remember when we put just Bennett, we had 11,000 possibilities, so it helps to narrow it down. The other thing that I should point out, and let's go back to doing just Bennett, because that will be a big one that will help me show you how to narrow by date. Everything I've done so far and showed you was like the full range of dates, right? What if I want to know about Bennett in the year 1900? I click the beginning. There's 2 boxes for between. If I know an exact date, if I'm looking for when he came to Pipestone, or perhaps an obituary or some event like when he opened his drugstore, I can choose on. I can also search before a certain date or after a certain date. I a lot of times do between. So if you're doing between, you'll see the beginning date and the end date boxes. So if I leave it at between and click on this first box, I can choose by decade. So I can say, I want to know what was happening between 1900. So I click the 1900, then I click January, and then I click 1 for the whole year. If I have a specific range, if I know they passed away on January 1st, then I might look from January 1st to January 15th for that obituary. So if you have some information when you're doing family history especially, then you can narrow it down a lot of times. Then I would go over to the second box. Again, I wanted to search 1900, so I click the decade, then I click the specific year, and I want to search the entire year, so I'm going to choose December 31st. And now I can see those 11,000. Well, Bennett's only mentioned in Pipestone County 122 times in that year. But there are cool ways to narrow it down. And sometimes when I'm doing research, like if I showed you gray siding, my brain likes to keep things chronological, so I will search by year. If you're searching by year, you get that neat little feature to the side where you can search by month. And then I can click January, and not only do I see that there were 5 results in January, I can see the dates. The dates that are in blue are highlighted, so then I can just click January 4th and see what pops up. And there were 2 mentions of Bennett on January 4th, and I could choose to click on them. Or, if the 5th, you can narrow it that way. When you get through the ones for January, then you just go up by January on that sidebar, click, and you see February. And you could do the same thing through all the different dates in February, and then in March, and so on. And if for some reason, and I didn't pay that close attention, if there's nothing for a certain month, you'll see none of the boxes highlighted in blue. It will automatically skip looking in that month if there's nothing, and it'll take you from June to August because the digital newspaper character recognition recognizes you're not going to find anything. So if you don't see a month with highlighted boxes to the side, it's really just telling you there was nothing in that month that appeared in the newspaper. So that's how you can narrow it down by date. And you don't have to do a full year. If I only want to search the name, let's do 1908, and I want to start September 12th, then I simply click the year. Here, I'm like, okay, we did 1908. Let's leave it in 1908. Let's leave it in September, and I only want to search between the 12th and the 27th. I can do that just by clicking the month and the date. And now I've got a 2-week window that it's going to search. And it's going to show me. And there were still 11 results found in that short window. But again, by design, I picked Bennett knowing it was a name from our history that was going to appear a lot to show you how to use the narrowing, the search, and the years and time. So does all of this make sense? Overwhelming, yes. But again, if you play with it, it's like, oh, there's lots of little drop-down menus and features that I can utilize that will help me narrow it down. Any other questions or comments? Then I encourage you to go home and play with it. The more you play with it, the more questions you'll have. By all means, stop in, give us a call, send me an email, ask. We'll gladly help you. I know I have had people come in. What's my email? education@pipestonecountymuseum.com. Yeah, I will certainly, absolutely answer. I know I've had somebody called, we talked to them through it, and they called back like an hour later going, well, all I see are these little blurbs, and it's kind of garbled, and it doesn't make sense. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I am so sorry. I forgot to tell you to click on the name of the newspaper. And once I told them that, they opened it up, and they're like, yes, that's what I was looking for. So, that's why I had someone ask this morning if there was a paper tutorial. Not yet, but that's a great suggestion. I'm going to work on one. If you're a member of the Historic Society, we'll get it emailed out to our membership list. We'll also announce it on our Facebook page that we'll have it available. So the general public, if you're watching this and you're not a member of our society and don't get it, let us know. Contact us. We can absolutely send you one by email or paper mail if you prefer that. And again, I know you guys are listening, but for those that are watching this later, the email you can reach me at, because it'll be on my computer, is education@PipestoneCountyMuseum, all one word, .com. So I will certainly send out directions to anybody, and it's just really play with it. It's a really great resource. It's fun. We've had people come in telling us, oh, I've been researching and I found out there was a holdup at the bank and my grandpa was one of the citizens and he pulled his gun and he helped capture the robbers. I'm like, I've done stories where people have said to me, my grandma was out on the prairie and Jesse James rode through and she was home alone. And I'm like, can you document that? And they're like, no, but it's been passed down through. I can't tell that story if I can't document it. But when you can show me where you found in the newspaper that your grandpa was involved in this shootout with bank robbers, that's really cool. And now we can document it. And now we can confidently share that piece of history without somebody going, you made that up. Because ultimately, when we as an organization share information, we need a source. If the newspaper was embellishing, as they did, if the newspaper was inaccurate, we can't be responsible for that, right? We don't know what led them to publish that 100 or 125 years ago. I will also say if you're doing family history research and you're finding obituaries, today the family helps write the obituary. It appears every newspaper they wanted in, the same obituary appears. That was not the case early on. The individual newspapers were writing obituaries. So if you find two of them, one maybe in the Pipestone County Star, one in the Pipestone Leader, you might get not very different, but you might get different information. One might say survived by 5 children. The other one might actually give you the names of those 5 children, which if you're trying to branch your family farther, those first names become helpful. Or married names of daughters, if you know they had a daughter by this name, but I don't know anything about who she married. So I encourage you to use it because you can see multiple sources and you might get various information in those situations.
So the Leader was before the Pipestone Star?
The Leader was a competitor of the Pipestone Star. They operated at the same time. It started later than the Star. There's staff in the back. Do you remember what year the Leader started? I don't remember exactly what year it started. I can tell you that it was bought out, assumed by the Star in 1944. But before 1900 until 1944, there were 2 competing newspapers in Pipestone itself. I wonder. I had scrolled down. 1890. So the Leader was 1890 to 1944. Thank you, Noah, for that. And if I go back to our homepage, which it never loaded the images like I wanted it to, thankfully it loaded the newspaper. when you scroll down, and it's not going to load them, but where this part where it says by title, it lists all the newspaper and it does tell you what years they were in print. So on the home page you can find that if it loads properly. I'm also noticing it's loading in blue today. I was like red yesterday or the day before, so I'm like, as Advantage Archive is striving to meet the requirements they have for accessibility, it changes slightly. So you'll play with it, you'll think you have it down, and then there might be a change. Sorry. Usually they're easy changes.
Was it named the Farmer's Leader? Or
It was the Farmer's Leader, and then it changed to the Pipestone Leader, so they're one and the same. They changed their name. I don't know exactly what year. It was the Farmer's Leaders first in 1890. Somewhere around the turn of the century, first decade of the 1900s, I believe it became the Pipestone Leader. And again, we have the Holland Independent. We have the Woodstock News. I forget what the names of all of them are, but I don't even remember how many titles. We have like 16 different titles. Does that seem right, or is that too many, Noah? Again, I'm calling on somebody in the back. Not sure off the top of my head. It would tell us this if the home page loaded properly, but you can scroll down and see all the different titles and the years they were published, generally. Any more questions? Well, thank you for coming, for listening, for watching. Please play with it and have fun with it, because once you just play and get over the what do I do, and you really start using it, the fun, interesting things that you can read and learn, even if it's not about your family. Just the style of writing they use, the way they embellished. If you read the early obituaries, you get to read all the things about, they've ascended to their heavenly home and they are singing with the angels, and very flowery, embellished language, but it's really fun to read. They also I wouldn't say embellished, they also used language when they were describing not so pleasant things. So if there was a story of a murder or a suicide, there's probably some graphic details, which I wouldn't say are fun, but interesting to think about how the world has changed and how we have to be conscious of how we present information, facts without opinions, and facts that aren't going to be harmful to the emotions of family members and things. So, well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome.